So I would like to welcome you to this event from PM to CEO and Grammarly for Coders. We have an interesting speaker tonight, Boris Paskalev. I will say some few words about him later on. But let me first welcome you to this virtual event. My name is Damir Blažević. I'm a volunteer for Zurich events team, and I have been volunteering for PMI since 2017. In my daily job, I'm also a project manager. What's first couple of housekeeping items, couple of rules that we all need to follow in this event. So as I said, as we were waiting for the participants to join, everyone is muted at the beginning. Please use chat for any interactions. I will follow the chat and maybe interrupt the speaker with some questions. The session will be recorded and published on the YouTube channel. Please be aware of this. And please make sure that your Zoom is up to date or that you have the latest version. There will be two polls or two questions during the session. We would kindly ask you to participate. It would give us an insight, and also it would give a special insight to the speaker. Very interesting question we have for you. And as I said, use the Q&A Q&A section also at the end to ask any questions. However, the speaker has informed me that he's happy to be interrupted. So whenever we have a question, just please write it in the chat section, and I will actually interrupt the speaker. For all those questions which are unanswered, those will be then wrapped up in an email and sent out after the event. Maybe we should start with the first question. So let us know where you're coming from. We will give you a couple of seconds to click through it. Obviously, since this is PMI Switzerland chapter, most of the participants will be from Switzerland, but we are always interested to see the results. There's someone in Lausanne. Hello. So as you can see, most of the participants from Zurich, most of the participants from Switzerland, but there are also some others from other European countries. And there is a person from Lebanon. Hello there, welcome to the event, and also someone from Asia. Thank you for that. This will be very useful for us, so we can shape the future events. Starting with the announcement and with the agenda about tonight's event. So we will just quickly go through the PMI Switzerland chapter. Just quickly talk about our chapter, for all those who are joining us tonight for the first time, and also as a quick refresh for all of those who have already participated in our events. After this, we will hand over to our speaker, and he will also introduce himself and then talk in 3 parts about a very interesting topic. After this Q&A session and a closing part where we would present quickly the organizing team. We will announce the upcoming events, which are very interesting, and also we will present the code for always needed PDU points. Also, there will be a link to a survey. I would kindly ask you if you could fill it out. It's really quickly. I mean, it needs just a couple of seconds actually to fill it out. So about the PMI Switzerland chapter, this is actually a timeline that represents last year. Obviously, the year started with the annual members meeting, which included also CEO from PMI. And of course, for the reasons now well known, we needed to, in April, we needed to switch to virtual events. This transition has been relatively smooth, and there have been many valuable events online. we certainly hope that we will be able to hold on-site events, which we all like and which have extra benefit of networking opportunities, of course, right? As you can see, we had in last year we had 1,200 participants, and there were around 1,500, more than 1,500 members of PMI Switzerland. There have been other activities except events throughout the year. Monthly coffee with the board, and also there was an opportunity to have a project management workshop for junior achievement in Africa. Also, some processes have been introduced in the PMI Switzerland chapter, and there was a workshop with the University of Lausanne. This year also started very well, especially on the event side, I would say. There has been obviously a virtual annual members meeting, but also a couple of very interesting events like the Future of Work is Human. Maybe you have seen them, maybe not. We have strengthened our social media channels in 2020, and personally my favorite is YouTube channel, where you can see all those past events in 2020 and also beginning of 21. You can go quickly click through the event, see what is of your interest, and also see the precious words for the game that Stefan, the member of the board, will later on announce. So that was it in terms of 2020, and so we move forward to the game, which will be presented by Stefan Fesenmeier, the member of the board. And he will tell us how can we see such a nice hotel at this picture.
Now today is not like this picture. Now today is more sunny, less snowy, but maybe the picture is also very relaxing. And I would like to invite you to come here for a weekend, for example, or to another very beautiful spot. And why I want to invite you is because we, PMI Switzerland, we have our 20th anniversary this year. This year, we have been 20 years in Switzerland to promote project management and to help our project management community to gain more knowledge and more skills about project management. And how I want to invite you here to this place. This shows me the next slide. This is our anniversary game. So we think we have 20 years PMI, so why not have a 20 years PMI Switzerland game? And the game is very simple, sure. It's just to find one sentence with 20 words. And these 20 words we will promote in each of our events this year. So we started in March to bring on the first word. And then we continue in each event to have one word that we show to the community, that we show to all attendees. If you collect the words at the end of the year, you can send it to us and we will draw the winner for one weekend in Switzerland. It will be a gift for two people. Unfortunately, maybe I'm not the second one, but you as the winner, you can choose the one to go with you to a weekend in Switzerland, to most beautiful places. And we announce the word in the event themselves and also in our YouTube channel, as Damir said. So most of our events are recorded. And if you missed the word or if you missed an interesting event, you can go to YouTube channel and see it there. Very soon, we will also activate a web page about anniversary. We will bring on some very interesting information, stories, sentences from the past 20 years from PMI Switzerland, and we will also collect all the anniversary game information. So, but now that's enough. The word for today is two words, most recognized. So please note word number 4 is most recognized. Wrote it down, collect the other words, and we will be happy to meet you in a beautiful place. Have fun this evening, good learning. Thank you for the organizing team and see you later again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan. Stefan will join us again later on when he will say a couple of words about the special events that we will have in May and later on during the year. And thanks a lot. So we move now to the let's say main section, which would be presentation by Boris Paskalev, and it's called From PM to CEO and Grammarly for Coders. So Boris will actually present himself in 3 minutes. That's what he will do, and I will say more about why is it that we invited him at all to speak for the members of PMI and aspiring members of PMI. He has I would say, a unique career, as he actually really worked in a trenches of global corporations as a PM on a different tasks, and and he has used those skills later on to actually start with a new company with his co-founders. He founded a startup which is using technology, AI, or he will explain more about it, to actually help programmers and coders. He used his PM skills actually to move this small company, grow it, and then bring it to towards the merger with a bigger software company. This is, of course, one of the dreams of every startup, right? So there are a couple of elements in his career where he was able to use his project management skills. And I think he is able here to make some parallels. Also, he would actually tell us something more about artificial intelligence. It's obviously the buzzword of the present, and he will give us here an insight in this world as well. All of those who have seen the similar event in the last year can also make some parallels. And for those who haven't, they can actually go back to our YouTube channel and see we had a similar event about artificial intelligence. So Boris, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Great introduction, Damir. And as always, everybody that's actually have helped and set up this. I personally saw how much effort it is, so I appreciate it from everyone. Just to start forward, just quickly on the agenda that what we'll cover today. So we'll definitely go through a couple of quick introduction of me, a little bit to actually tell you a little bit more about my journey so far. Then the 3 parts are speaking about being a project manager in a billion-dollar company, or being a CEO in a successful startup, and how pretty much those are very similar. Then we're going to talk about the AI. There's lots of buzz about it, and Grammarly for Code, which is actually what we defined as kind of our slogan for our startup. Then in part 3, we're pretty much going to go into the direction, what is right for you? Like, is it better to be a project manager? Is it better to be going a startup? And that's, yeah, we'll talk about it a bit further on that. As I said, please interrupt, actually. Feel free to actually turn on your camera if you can. I believe you cannot anyway, but very relaxed. My goal here is to actually try to help everybody in making their choices in life easier. Hopefully you can learn something along the way. I will quote different people that I've learned from over time, so it's not everything mine. You can assume that. And that's about it. So let's keep on going. So to start with, I was born in Bulgaria, hence you're actually getting this weird Eastern European accent. I've never even put an effort to change it. The cool thing about it is Bulgaria is very beautiful. So I actually put a couple of pictures, actually 1 picture, but kind of have 9 there of very cool places there. So great place to visit in the European Union, relatively cheap. In terms of what I've done after that, I've actually went to the US to finish my education. I did my bachelor's and master's there in Boston. I actually ended up living in Boston for more than 10 years. I started my work career there, and I'll kind of go through it a little bit in a second. Later on, when I moved to Switzerland, that was in 2008, actually, a couple of years later, I did my executive MBA in Triumph, which is a combination of a couple of different schools, which is kind of, I moved from product management, project management specifically, and then more into entrepreneurship. That's really kind of sparked the interest. to not waste time. So I've kind of the major experience that I've done is manufacturing. This is actually where we met with Damir. That was in Vistaprint. That obviously that's mainly an e-commerce business, but they've done everything on their back end. I've done for the past 4 to 5 years a lot of AI and SaaS, software as a service. In the past, I've done environmental startups, medical startups. I've actually done like real estate, a number of real estate projects. There's like a longer list, but I don't want to bore you with it. I am actually married, 2 boys, 3 and 5 years old. We actually all live in Switzerland, just outside of Zurich, in Diebendorf. And yeah, this is actually our New Year and Christmas. We're obviously alone, closed in, but still a happy one. Moving forward, I'm very passionate to actually solve hard problems. And that's why you see this is what project management is, in my opinion, and continuously improve every single day. And here I've actually put a quote from Simon Sinek that you don't have to show up to prove. He's mainly talking about showing up to work to prove, but you actually have to show up to improve. That's the goal. That's what actually makes you happy and fulfillment. And they sit very well with me, those words, because I am actually trying to improve. And actually, I found this quote after I wrote the sentence about myself, which is very telling. And that's roughly it. Here I'm listing a couple of the places I've worked all my career, obviously with my education in MIT. And there's a couple of startups, Putnam Investments. What I don't list here is Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank was a funny story. I actually started working there and ultimately left them during the first week. To join back then a startup, Vistaprint, and it was fun. During Vistaprint, I started my own startup, Carbon Minder, on the side. Don't do startups on the side; they end up failing. But it was very focused, environmentally focused. It was after I met Al Gore during the very first TED Talks. Back then, TED was kind of a small conference happening in California. I was a volunteer. I was not at all cool enough to be there, but I was volunteering, like many people actually doing, to organize this PMI, to organize TED. And then I actually sat on the table with Al Gore for lunch, and I was very excited about his thoughts. It was after he lost the election, and he was focusing on global climate change. But yeah, this startup failed, ultimately. After that, obviously, with Vistaprint, I actually moved to Switzerland in 2008. It was very cool. We had to open the office here, manufacturing center of excellence. And then we actually hired Damir, and then we later lost them, but still, so we're very happy to actually have him for that period of time. Did my executive MBA. After the MBA, I had a bunch of friends from there. We actually funded a medical startup for patients with heart failure. And after this one was mildly successful, it was a wash, let's put it that way, still operational in Poland, the technology. Then we actually started DeepCode with a couple of friends from University of Zurich. Actually, no, ETH. Sorry, I should never confuse those. People get really unhappy with that. And we'll talk about DeepCode a bit later. Then that was lately we merged with Snake, which is a much larger tech company. And I have no idea what I'm going to do next. That's always fun and a challenge in life. So with that said, let's move forward to the very first part, which we're talking about what project managements are and how they're similar to modern day CEOs. So what I did, I actually did some research for that, surprisingly. And there's actually a very number of publications that the PMI have actually posted over the years. There's even a whole paper in 2004. And the traits of project managers have not really changed over time. The only thing that I believe has changed is the very modern word and fancy word grit, right? Which is obviously it's a positive word for defining person, right? It's talking about perseverance, effort, passion, long-term goals towards end state, vision, etc., etc. There's many different definitions of grit, but you get the gist in the short answer. And ultimately, what grit is for me, since the first trait of problem managers is problem solving. I mean, we are solving problems, multiple problems related to the project. And this is where we need the grit to make sure we keep on going and we actually keep on pushing them, right? So the perseverance is very important there. Underneath, desire to learn is very important. Experience is also listed in the research. But from what I've seen so far, no project manager is ever ready to actually and have the experience to finish a project. There's so many new things that are happening, and there's never a perfect match. So you always have to actually learn on the spot and as you go. And that's why that's very important at the end of the day. Obviously, patience during that time is very important, but getting the new skills, it's a must, pretty much. Curiosity and confidence, those are the other two that I list there. Curiosity is needed because in order for you to learn, you have to kind of deep dive and understand what you need to learn. As I call this, never leave a stone unturned. Opportunity, potential way to actually get everything back on track, etc. Confidence is also very needed there because people have to be able to communicate with everybody else. You have to have the can-do mentality. If you don't believe the project will happen, none of your team members will actually be able to do that. And it's funny because usually project managers don't actually have direct reports, right? You have to use the soft skills to get things done. And this is where confidence even becomes even more important. To some extent, sometimes you have to sell. I know that's often considered a dirty word, but at the end of the day, we actually sell lots of different things. So it's an important thing to do. And the last one is actually enjoyment. And I think that's part of the grit, right? That's why it's positive. You have to actually be happy from those daily struggles and actually small failures, small successes in order to actually continue pushing and move forward. And here, actually, yesterday, I was actually having a morning run. I'm not a runner, by the way, so don't assume that I'm running every morning. I'm like kind of 5-6 times per year type of running. But I'm looking at here in Zurich, we have kind of hills around, so I kind of run up the hill. And it's always, I just want to get up, right? A little bit of that, it goes for the workout, for COVID, everybody tells you have to exercise, so you keep your immune system up. So I did that, right? And the question is it's not fun, especially if you don't run off. It's hard, it was actually a bit muddy, slippery. But then the question is, how do you make it enjoyable, right? I decided to run by the river. There are actually many different paths you can actually go to get up. By the river was fun. I like water, so I said that's going to be fun. And it doesn't matter. Like throughout the whole way, despite that I was slow, I was barely breathing, it was fun, right? Just because it was there, I actually had to walk quite the way as well. But it was still there, and I get to the final point. And this is ultimately what grit gives you, right? Putting all those things together, sweating like hell in the trenches with the whole team, solving like a million small problems out there, and finally delivering a project, right? And on the way, you always learn something. That's actually the best part. You always gain a bunch of friends along the way, but that's the fun. So that's really what I'm actually defining as the main traits for a project manager, or at least that's what I'm looking for when I'm actually hiring project managers. So that's my main thing. Now, moving forward a little bit to actually that you also need to be agile, right? That's actually an important thing to have. And the reason I call it agility, and this is kind of the first reference to startups, is this is the standard thing that startups do, like pivoting, right? Which means you change the course a little bit. The main goal remains the same. Again, remember the reference of like running up the hill. You want to get to the top, but there's so many paths to get there, right? And you don't always take the same one. Sometimes, actually, when I was running yesterday, there was a couple of fallen trees that I couldn't go over, so I had to go around. Yeah, that's normal, but at least you get up. That's an important point there. And larger projects, especially, they never go up as planned, right? Scope changes over time. All the major assumptions could change. So that's kind of normal, right? In the startups, it's the same way, same analogy. It's almost like drinking from a fire hose every day. Like there's new things coming your way. You definitely not expect them, and you just have to figure out how to deal with this, right? And that's why agility is a must. Empathy for project managers is very important. As I said, you don't have people that report to you. A lot of times those people don't care about you. You're meeting them for the first time. So you have to have the interpersonal and human skills, the social skills, to direct openly to them, to gain their trust pretty much from the first meeting. Definitely not an easy thing. And that's why project managers are usually friendly people, which is absolutely great. And they have to have the ability and patience to express themselves clearly, to be able to attentively listening, that's called active listening, to be actually understand the constraints and problems of other people. Again, that's a little bit about selling, trying to get the gist, motivate people why this project is important, why the goal is there. And similar to what you can get is in a similar way, the startups, if you're kind of a CEO, and ultimately CEO or COO is the same, startups are too small, you end up doing all those work together. you actually have to sell the project and the ideas to investors, to customers. Yes, you have to do selling as well. To other adventurous people that have joined the project. In startups, usually this is more volunteer than in project management, where the teams are often assigned. Sometimes, obviously, people try to get into cool projects as well. But oftentimes you actually get people who don't care. So again, very, very similar into both areas. So let's move a little bit then into the CEO add-ons. So those are the things that I did not mention so far, but CEOs are kind of expected to do, right? Finance. Yeah, we don't like this, but having a financial knowledge, and this is not just building a business model for the specific project, it's a bit more advanced because there's more kind of reporting requirements, etc. You have to actually learn the jurisdiction, filing taxes oftentimes, unfortunately, keeping liquidity, so a little bit of treasury, it's included there. All of those things are add-ons, but nothing that it's actually very easy to learn. I mean, kind of learned half of them in my executive MBA. The other one, the curiosity, you learn them as you go and as you need to learn, and you talk to friends who have done it in the past. The second one is a bit more strategic thinking. Depending on which company you're working at as a project manager you actually can be empowered to kind of build a business case, change the scope of the project, or you could be just given a piece of paper that actually describes what it is. I personally like the first one. I was lucky enough with Damir, we worked in Vistaprint, which the project managers are really powerful. They had to do all the work, maybe because somebody was lazy not to do it, but they were actually building the business case, defining the business case, researching even what the solution should be. So it was a bit more fun. And the last one for CEO that you read almost everywhere, it is kind of this grander, broader vision. A lot of people claim that the only thing that CEOs have to do is actually work for vision and define the vision and execute on the vision, make sure it's on the path. This is true for large companies. For small companies, I think everything else that we've listed so far is almost a must. Actually, the interesting point here is that, I don't know who said that, obviously not me, that a CEO ultimately is dealing with all the stuff that nobody else wants to deal, that actually working on the project. And I'm sure as a project manager, you remember that as well. There's always like those problems that if you want to save the day, you work overnight and fix it yourself. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often, but unfortunately, sometimes that does, yeah. So that's roughly it. So here we can actually drive a conclusion that the small companies and the large projects are very, very much similar in how you operate them. And this is kind of what I say is that the modern day CEOs are pretty much like what project managers are in general, with kind of a small stretch, a step forward that is absolutely achievable by anyone. So that's roughly it. I don't see any questions from the chat. So what I'll do is I'll actually switch gears to the second part, which is a little bit cooler kind of thing about AI, what is the AI buzz there. What is the AI buzz? And the short answer is everybody's talking about AI. There's like lots of research out there that is telling you if you're adding AI in the name of a product or project or a startup, the value grows by 20 to 30% to the exact same one without that. It is crazy, but yes, because of the news and the modern day social media, that is kind of very, very normal. But in reality, what is AI today? It's a very good question, because I can tell you that AI today does not exist, because AI stands for artificial intelligence. And by no definition, artificial intelligence exists, right? The only thing that exists today, if you're actually thinking, is there is augmented intelligence. Funnily enough, that's the same abbreviation. So you can argue when people say AI, this is what they mean. I did mean that in DeepCode for sure, because it is augmented intelligence. What augmented intelligence is using the knowledge, some kind of a system that helps you in very specific tasks. So whatever you do, it gives you the information, sometimes the power to actually do things better and more efficient. So it's augmenting the natural intelligence that we have so we can perform tasks better. That could be in your phone, that could be the search, that could be very stupid tasks like, is that a cat? Yes, this is where we have very good machine learning algorithms that can actually tell you if something is a cat or not. Arguably better than people, right? So that's actually good. The second term that augmented intelligence is, if you reverse it, which is IA, that's actually often used for intelligence amplifications, which is the same thing as augmented intelligence. Again, it amplifies your natural intelligence by giving you this additional data. And yeah, so that's about it about AI. I think it's a bit moronic how people use it today. To overweight the term, machine learning is pretty much what we've been using for years. I mean, when I was a kid, there was lots of data. We had to figure out if we can get things out of it. But at the end of the day, it was the exact same thing. So the machine learning have not really changed. The computing power and our ability to kind of effectively use it have changed a lot over the past years with the Moore's law still steadily going up in the direction it was predicted. So let's go to a questionnaire here, because before we want to move to DeepCode, I want to ask everybody else here, are you guys aware or have you actually used Grammarly? It's Grammarly.com at the end of the day if you want it, but I'm just curious for it to actually, who knows what it is, who is using it, that's about it, and then we'll move forward. I'll regardless give a quick explanation of what it is. Dun, 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 dun. Drum roll. Everybody that was laying down on the bed and stretching, run to the keyboard now. Give it 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's close it. And actually see the results. Okay, wow, we have almost a 50-50 split. I'll actually put it here so people can see it. So we have 51% of the participants that actually know what it is and 49 do not. Okay, with that said, I'll actually then tell you what it is a little bit. So the short answer about what Grammarly is, the Grammarly is your standard word processing tool, or your email if you think it that way. Check for when you write text, any text. You're writing an essay, you're writing a scientific paper, Grammarly is there. The cool thing about it is actually it uses every single piece of text written in the world. Think about it, every book that's ever digitized, every paper that's published, and it's using special machine learning techniques specifically for text to extract the knowledge and all the semantics, how sentences could be formed, etc., etc. Funny thing, it's only available for English. Yes, I know that's the main reason why a lot of people in the Swiss part of, in the German-speaking part of Switzerland do not use it, including myself, right? But nothing prevents to add more languages, just they haven't focused on it. I do believe in the coming years we'll actually see it for more and more languages. But that's the main benefit. Here it's nice to highlight the fact that for machine learning and AI in general, AI only works when you actually have structured data, right? Actually, the 4 founders of artificial intelligence have defined it, now have all migrated and are running conferences for machine learning representations. Machine learning representation is the thing that you get all the data out there, you convert it in a format that the machines can recognize, and then you can just apply the very powerful machine learning algorithms that we have already. This is what looks like a common AI, right? The limitation today and where we stand with that is that they're actually machine learning representations for very few things. At the end of the day, there's machine learning representations for text. Everybody knows that. This is what Grammarly benefits from. There's machine learning representations for images. That's the reason why the computers can recognize cats very well. And video, obviously, because video is just a sequence of images, right? It's a number of frames. For everything else, there's literally no good machine learning or AI algorithms. Everything is purely based on this. Like the latest one for text is GPT-3. It's like lots of things out there. It can write text. It feels like a human. It can write news articles, etc. Actually, it can. That's pretty nice. Text recognition in the same way with voice. But for everything else, you need something new. And this is what the AI for coders that we invented in Zurich. Like the name is DeepCode.ai. I can say it because not advertising anymore since the company is fully owned by another one. It's pretty cool. But what we can do here is that we actually built the very first machine learning representations, and which was the current AI challenge, right? This was built not in the company, to be honest. The conception of it actually came from ETH Zurich, which our 2 co-founders have spent like 6-7 years actually thinking about. And that's why allowed us, the idea was there and we just had to implement it, which is pretty cool. And this first machine learning representation allowed us to actually tap what is called big code, which is the knowledge of the global development community. Think about it, every single software developer have everything that they've ever written, and with open source, a lot of it is actually publicly available. You actually can tap that history. So you're looking from the very first line of code ever written, every single change ever made. You can actually build that in a one big knowledge base and extract code from it. The best thing about for machine learning, you have to label the data. What is correct and what is wrong? This is the most common questions people ask. With code, because you have history, people fix code all the time. They either write new code or they fix old problems. So every time you fix something, you can identify, well, let's see what the code looked like before on the machine learning representation, what it looked like after the fix. And then you can see the delta. When you see a pattern that many people are fixing the same problem the same way, you can say, hey, the global development community agrees that such problems should be fixed like this. Over time, this changes. And that's why if you represent it as a sphere, inside the sphere, you have the knowledge of the very first line of code. Outside is what the development community agrees is the best practices today. Inside, we have a history. Say like 10 years ago, people used to fix it this way. Now they're fixing it this way. And that's it. That is the very simple, simplistic representation about it. There's like literally, I'm not going to say there's more than 10 different machine learning algorithms, many different innovations inside of it, but this is the core to understand what we're talking about here. This is another example. So we'll see many, many more of those, right? As more and more machine learning representation in different areas come along, we'll see more and more actually augmented intelligence systems that can do specific tasks. And this is where we are. About where we're going to end up, when we're going to have real artificial intelligence, that is a hard question. I believe that we will never really have a real artificial intelligence, but what we'll have is AI of AIs, right? Which means you have small AIs that can do individual things, right? And then there's going to be an AI on top of it that actually can connect with all of them and say, okay, how do I do every single task that theoretically could be asked for? And then when you put them all together, you can do a lot of things, and it's going to be indistinguishable from what a person can do. Hopefully, quantum computers will be required for that because there's going to be too much compute power that you have to integrate at the same time. And this is where the AI bus comes in, right? So moving forward a little bit here. So DeepCode, again, just as a history, it started in 2017, give or take hands on keyboards, 2021, we moved forward. What I'll do, I'm not going to walk you to the whole history of what DeepCode did. I mean, if we can go into more questions, if everybody is interested, we can do so. I see a question: how does intellectual property issues impact this? We actually have had to build a special system because every single line of code that exists out there in the open source community, they have a license. So you can say what that license it is. You can read it, which means you can learn from it, but sometimes you cannot reuse it. So the one that you cannot reuse, we never use it as examples to actually show people where we learned it from. But nothing prevents us from actually reading from it, which is the cool benefit from it. Think about it almost like reading a newspaper, article, book. You can read it, you can learn from it, but you cannot just copy paste it, right? You have to actually quote it. Sometimes there could be even further restrictions. If you have more questions about it, Idros, feel free to poke me like now or later. Good. So let's move forward, I think, I think this is the core of the subject today, right? What does a startup or a large industry project is, and which one is better for me? It's, as I said, that is the hard question. I hope that after we finish this, you'll be able to kind of learn a little bit like, what does it make sense? Do I want to do it? When is the right time to do it, right? To do that, I actually wanted to highlight a bit of the differences, right? And say what I see as the positives and negatives. There's much longer list that I'll actually put here, but this is some of the important ones I think people should consider. And I'll be happy to hear, by the way, your opinions on that after that, more as a discussion. So from an industry perspective, right, there are a couple of different things there, right? Stability. Larger companies, much more stable, right? You don't expect things to go up and down. Clearly, startup, that's the other way around. Startup, you can run out of money like quickly, right? Funny fact, with DeepCode, when we raised, I think, our first round, we ended up having, when the money actually arrived in the bank, I looked at it, we had less than 200 francs in the bank, which is kind of funny. So clearly we wouldn't be able to pay the salaries of our staff. So it's just in time, right? And this was a risk, right? You try to shield your employees from it, but small startups, 5, 10 people, everybody knows what's happening. So it is not, if you don't have if you're not stable, if you're not a bit adventurous, that you might actually see that as a negative. So that's the benefit of the industry, scale. That's the other big thing, right? When you work for a big company with projects like you're looking like you have 100 people working on the project, millions thrown into the project, depending on the size of the project, obviously. But it's definitely much more than a startup, right? In a startup, you're like at the beginning, you're 2-3 people, you're lucky already, good size. Then you hire 2-3 more. So that's it, that's the team. And you have to do everything, right? Clearly, you cannot afford huge cloud providers. You cannot afford to have marketing. You cannot afford to have graphic designers. You kind of do everything on your own, right? And that's very different from an industry where you have the scale, you have the budget, you can plan grant things, you can buy large pieces of equipment, you have the budget, suppliers, you name it. So definitely a positive for the industry here. Specializations, right? So this is kind of a plus or a minus, right? Because if you're in the industry, because of the scale, you have people that do every single thing, right? So you as a project manager can really focus on project management, and you can have a finance person that's dealing with the finances, you have procurement to buy stuff, you have IT departments, like different types, some people building stuff, some people building equipment, you name it, depending on the project, you have specialists for everything, which allows you as a project manager to specialize in project management and potentially run multiple projects, which is also fun. With that said, the negative that I see, the biggest negative is the politics, right? Which makes running a project much less optimal, slower, ultimately the case, and much more less fun, right? And that's kind of an interesting point. And what I want to say here is that that could be seen as a positive. A lot of people actually say, well, but this is where you learn. It's a melting pot to learn what to try and avoid in the future, right? I actually had the exact same experience in the early days of Vistaprint when we were growing. I mean, when you're growing, Vistaprint grew from like 30 people to like 6,000 in a matter of years. And then that means you hire a bunch of people, right? And the question there is I was not happy with some of them, right? Like politics, what means people actually try to do things for themselves, like to better themselves rather to better the project and better the company. And I did the research and I found this interesting book that's called the No Asshole Rule. In short, the book says is figure out which people are like this, fire them, don't hire them, etc., etc. It's a very small book, by the way. It was fun to read, a bit very direct, I have to say, but I like it like this, very true. And I've learned it, and over time, I've actually changed my hiring skills a bit to actually try to check for this. Like, and that's why those soft skills are important. Like, are you a sociopath? I think that's kind of the questions. There is a lot of research saying that 80% of the CEOs of large companies are sociopaths, right? And that is a lot, right? So you can actually decide yourself, is that for you or not? I mean, some people, that's great for you. Sociopath pretty much means you don't care about the people. You care about you being good. That means you can actually get some political or business success out there, but usually on the expense of people. I mean, and every person has to decide where they want to be. My personal recommendation and liking is don't be a sociopath. I mean, we've had recent political leaders that are like clear examples of that. I do not like this personally, and I also think that those people are never happy, right? Because ultimately, as we said, as part of the grid, you have to enjoy every single step as you go. And if you don't, even if you achieve that success, you'll be like, what do I do? Okay, I'll try to do more. But you're not happy. You're not enjoying the process, right? And that's the concern here, right? So that's kind of read the book or not, but you get the gist. You can read the summary. I actually almost never read books. It's much easier to just read the summaries of them. Saves you lots of time, so allows you to read much more at the same time. So moving forward, why to not start a startup? I was like, wow, I actually found this by Google search. Everything has in the presentation, but there's many reasons why not to do a startup, right? And there's many lists that I'm not going to go through, like listing every single one of them. But the short analysis is dreams, passion, and meaning. It's kind of the most common things that people list in terms of why do you want to do it. And the other thing is, it's actually just a cool trend these days, right? So which means that everybody wants to do their own startup. It's just cool. People want to do it, but people don't understand. It's not only the fun stuff. I mean, as I said earlier, when you're in a startup, especially if you're leading it, right, you do all the work that other people don't want to do, right? Which means is everybody does the cool stuff, okay, blah, blah, blah. But if there's something dirty that has to be done, it is you. You actually, as a leader, you have to do it because there's no one else. There's no specialist to do everything else. So if you don't like finance, yeah, suck it up. You have to do it. So ownership and impact are the other important things. Again, that's one of my reasons I actually left. I said politics, I did not like it. And I said, okay, I want to own this. I want to be able to do my own things. So that's kind of an important thing. So if you want to do and own something end to end, the dream, some people actually is their dream for money, for fame, right? Actually in college, I was looking if I went to college and I started college during the .com boom. Wow, it was amazing, right? We actually called startups the geek lottery. It was actually pretty cool, which means it's like the nerds are actually going up into making a company and they could be super rich, right? So that's an important thing to do. Actually back then, when I was studying college, I had actually friends who were finishing back then. They were joining startups and their sign-up bonuses were literally luxury cars. Like you're talking BMW, Mercedes, etc., and not the like A1, like the things that exist, the small things that exist today, like luxury sedans. It was like, wow, what a dream. I don't know to what extent that drove me into technology, but part of it maybe, okay? But ultimately, at the end of the day, I did not join technology to start my own company. I joined technology because it was cool, it was changing the world, etc. But many people have different drives. Today, it's different. Today, there are no sign-up bonuses anymore. Forget it. Like that's the .com boom, bursted, all those cool things there. Now there is a new boom. As I said, people like it. It's very fashionable, right? Like to do it. People think I'm gonna go there now, do impact the next day. And yes, you can actually do, but statistically show you that very few startups actually end up succeeding. So it is very important as a startup to be able to fail and continue. So that makes sense. And in a startup, you do it all. As I said, no specialization. If you have, it has to be done. For me, that's the equivalent of mini MBA. That's why a lot of people are saying, wow, education is kind of overrated these days. You just jump in and you do it. It is true. Like you start your own company, you want to learn about finance, you want to learn about everything, right? Maybe the hard way, but it is a very good way of learning, right? So you deep diving into almost any area that actually exists around business, which is pretty cool. And obviously the focus that you're doing. Agile at its best, right? Like forget Agile in any other company, big company, we talk about it, people go to classes. In startup, you have no choice. You're doing everything, you're changing course every day, which is a must. You cannot do everything. You're jumping from one topic to another, and you do the bare minimum. Like you're not going to document, you're not going to do all those things. You're going to document the bare minimum so everybody knows what it is, or the external people actually can get where they want to be and understand it. So for the investors, document as little as possible. As the startup goes up and you raise further rounds, you have to document more and more. So you're getting closer to big companies.
Boris, we have a question about the stakeholder management here.
Sure, please.
Where do you place resistive stakeholders under industry? From Hisham.
Where do you place resistive stakeholders? Oh, that used to be my favorite thing when I was working big projects there. What I used to do, I was converting everything to money. This is again a bit of the selling thing, and being able to extract the gist of the project and the goals to actually do that, right? And this is very important for a project manager to know, why are we doing this, right? And this is when your project manager can build the business case and really compare to all the other business cases out there. Literally, you're aligning the project with the initiatives and priorities of the company. Why are we doing this project? And me as a project manager, I actually refused to start projects until it was obvious, right, that this project could be successful, right, and that this project is important currently compared to any other opportunities that the company has. It's a bit of an extra work in the beginning. It's a little unpopular situation to be in, but I think that's the important thing, because if you cannot motivate yourself and believe that's the right thing, stakeholders don't want to do it, they're going to be the same thing. Sometimes, and that's why actually later in my career in this sprint, I've moved from pure project management to actually change management. There is misaligned incentives within the big groups. And this is where you can actually have resistive people saying, well, you're asking me to do this, but I have totally different KPIs, right? And if you have totally different KPIs that are misaligned with the global company, then you're absolutely correct. You're actually fighting with his KPIs. He has to do something else. He's behind on his other KPIs and he's not going to get bonus, potentially get fired, right? If he does not achieve his other objective, and he'll be like, I don't want to do it. Direct communication with those people is important. That's building a friendship to some extent. This is the social skills coming in to understand why are they doing this. Because if you understand their problem solving comes in, you have to solve their problem if you want your project to be successful. Sometimes that means escalating up and saying, hey, I cannot get resources for this because it doesn't make sense. They're overloaded, they have different KPIs. And then problem solving one-to-one, outsourcing, coming up from different ways, changing the schedule. This is where you have to be agile. Sometimes you have to delay a project because you can say, they're working on something critical, it's much larger impact for the company, that means we have to delay our project. Unpopular, but when you actually put the numbers and the logic behind it, you're all done. Nobody will argue with it, right? And it's extra effort, I agree, but sometimes it's needed. I hope that answers the question. Good. So I was going to come back to the startup. There is a but of the coolness of the startup, right? As I said, you 100% all in on a daily roller coaster. Things go up and down every day. There's no vacation. People think, startup, you go there and you work from the beach. I mean, with COVID now, a lot of people think that's happening. But in a startup, that's not the case. You fall asleep thinking about it. Sometimes you wake up during the night thinking about it. And then you wake up thinking about it. Like all in, forget it. Like sometimes you actually all in investing your own money. And by the way, when you're all in, this is when investors start throwing money at you because they know that you will solve whatever needed because you're all in, right? That's typical like in poker. And it's actually amazing fun. It is a roller coaster. One day you're super happy, one day you're so down. And actually sometimes that's between the hour to another. But if you like this, again, that's where grit comes in, similar to project management. You have to enjoy the downs, right? You have to enjoy the ups and the downs, and you're not going to be waiting to enjoy the final point because you likely never reached final point. I mean, did you think that we were thinking, oh, we'll merge with another company? No. We're thinking we are so good. Our technology is amazing. We're just going to build it up, company on its own. Everybody's gonna use it, obvious, but it takes time, right? And that's the reason why we actually said, hey, well, let's figure out, we want to get to that level where every single person uses your technology or your vision, but you're not sure how to get there. Merging, in our case, with another company was the right way because we had to build sales, marketing, huge teams to do. And we were about to raise yet another round of funding. And this, we saw it as a way to actually shortcut to get to the goal by at least 2 years. I estimated 2 to 3 years, right? Because otherwise we'd have to do the exact same thing. We'd have to compete likely with much more players because in 3 years, AI's technology in general developing very fast, likely there'll be even more competition. People will be able to catch up. We estimated people try to start building what we're building from scratch. If they're well-funded, they have a large team, 3-4 years, they'll be able to catch up. So you have to be always faster than them. So you actually grow a much wider barrier for anybody to be able to catch up. My typical example, this is Amazon, right? They're so much ahead with their selling engine that they know about customers, about products, and they allow everybody to sell on the platform. But the minute they see that the product is well received, very used, they build their own. Say, this is an Amazon product, has the exact same feature. It's made in China, obviously, right? Well, low-cost country. Sorry, I don't want to put things into boxes. And so it's cheaper than the brand names, but it has the exact same feature. They know what's good because they get all the complaints about the products, everything. And so if you're going to Amazon, you're ultimately giving them information if your product is big enough so that they actually copy-paste it. Beautiful idea for platform, but that allows them to be so much ahead. So even if you have copy-pasted that technology, you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the user thing, the amount of data coming in on a daily basis from customers, buying, complaining, ranking things, right? And that's the reason why speed is of an essence in a startup. So that's why you don't sleep, you don't get vacation, you just run as fast as possible, whichever way you go. Like in the mountain, you run up, you're not sure how you're going to get there, but you're sprinting. If you see an obstacle, you sprint the other way, go around it. So that's the challenge of a startup. Somebody sees that as a positive thing. I can tell you the most exhilarating experience in your life, it is there. Absolutely. That's why I call it a roller coaster. Some people might actually hate it. So it's a kind of a way of tweaking it so you like it. Good. So we're kind of running out of time, but the other negative thing is less cash. So imagine that, like your salary is lower, so that's a negative for the startups, but there is a larger possible upside into the future. As I said, low probability. Think about it as a highly risky investment. that you're doing. So if you're doing it for the money, I highly discourage you, right? Because the probabilities are not always in the odds. If you're enjoying it, then the odds actually increase, in my opinion. But you should be ready to get nothing out of it but the fun, the experience, and the learnings. Because don't forget, in the MBA, so you're actually paying for an MBA if it fails. Conclusion: it is very individual what is best for you. That is really important thing for you to understand. That's why it's almost like a scale, right? And also, it is a function of time. So depending on which stage of your life you want to do it, this is when you have to think about, does it make sense? I myself was getting old. Well, I don't know how, it's like 3 years ago. So I was getting like 37, 38. And I was thinking, if I don't do a startup right now, I'll get way too old after that. Like with kids, I would not want to do it. So that's another push of this. Timing as well was important, obviously. There was changes in Vistaprint back then. I had potentially to kind of get the fun, cool things that were happening in Vistaprint. I had to move to a different country. My family didn't want to. So I said, yeah, good opportunity to actually try something new. So it's a bit of luck. Always never forget luck. Luck is very important in life. But you have to have the courage and know where you are. That's what it is. And you'll never have a clear answer. That's the important thing. So knowing what you like and what you want, and all those traits that I listed, all those trade-offs that I listed, you have to be happy with them. You're never going to be certain, but you have to be okay to do them. I can tell you the last example here. When I said I'm going to do a startup, and I told my wife, that means you're not going to see me for a number of years. It's going to be super hard. You have to spend more time with the kids. 1 year after the startup, she'll start complaining. I never agreed on that. It's too much. So there's actually this additional pressure. So if you have a partner or somebody that you live with, that will be lots of strain in that relationship as well. Also, a negative or a positive, we came up much stronger because we had to solve more problems together. But again, it definitely doesn't allow you much downtime to think about it. So with that said, that's the scale. I hope that you learned 3 things, right? Number 1, it's not a clear decision. Number 2, there's lots of pros and cons, and there's a lots of folklore out there telling you what it is and what it's not. Don't trust it, right? On the surface, it's there. It's mainly a cool thing. And the last thing is, the hardest part is to know what you want and to actually have the courage to do it and have fun while you're doing it. Because if you don't, you'll never succeed. Because ultimately, the goal at the end of the day is for you to be happy. Optimize your life as a function of happiness. That's my conclusion of that. With that said, I think we should open everything for questions so we have a more direct discussion.
Exactly. Thank you, Boris. Yeah.
Go ahead, Damir.
No, I just wanted to encourage the participants then to go for questions if they have some. Let's give them a couple of seconds.
Yeah, and by the way, feel free to ask like very, very direct personal questions. Like, I am wondering what to do with my life. I love to do that. When I retire, I'm going to be a consultant for entrepreneurs and early stage startups. So if you don't want to do it now, like you can ask after that as well, like in a one-to-one setting. So I'll be happy to do it.
As Pia is from the virtual team is unmuting people, let me ask a question. Do you think you were successful with the startup because you were in this particular niche, or would you be so successful if you were doing manufacturing or something else, engineering, design?
Yeah, that's a pure guess. As I said, there's lots of luck, there's lots of timing. I personally believe I have the can-do attitude that I don't know how successful, but I would have had fun, which is already a success. I would have given my best, try to get the right people on board, try to do the right ideas. I'll try to solve it as any other problem, right? Like you want to get from here to here, what is the best way of doing it? And sometimes you have to solve the problems in your head earlier to decide. I mean, when I was starting DeepCode, I was looking at 3 other startups at the same time. And this one was kind of more like it. And the people are the most important things. Finding the right co-founders, it's amazing. I was so lucky, like certified geniuses I worked with. And so I cannot at all claim that was my success.
Okay, this is important. So there's one from Elena here. It's $1 million question. When is the right time to sell?
That is a very good question. I can tell you, even when we decided to merge, yeah, we've had many discussions when to sell. We've had many offers to being bought, and it's hard. It's ultimately, we've built spreadsheets. Yeah, it's hard. And I can tell you, I did not want to sell for the very last minute, but I took into account many factors. And this acceleration factor is great. And we didn't sell. That was the go idea. We actually merged with Snake. Now we accelerated where we want to be, right? And then we're still working ridiculously hard. I'm working in a startup today, just a different name, and we're doing the exact same thing. Just have so many more people working on it, which is amazing. And will allow us to actually reach where we want to be there. So yeah, if you sell to like a giant technology company, you're selling, right? You're not getting shares, you're not getting an upside. So, and I don't know where, because I've never sold to a giant technology company, but I can tell you, I've looked at that problem multiple times, multiple offers, negotiations left and right. And I was never convinced. I was like, oh, great deal, super. And during the night, I'm like, forget it. There's no way that the potential is so huge. And we're likely going to become like a small cog in a big machine. Is that exciting? So, but it's a trade-off. And that's, again, it's a personal choice. And it's usually the team have to decide, because different people are at different stages. At some point, we actually had a discussion, should we sell to a company that wanted us to actually relocate to the US? And we had a discussion. I said, hey guys, everybody said no. I said, are you kidding me? There's always a price. Tell me, what is the multiple on the current offer, then when we move? And they said 3 to 5. If they 3x the offer, we'll move. Obviously that doesn't happen, right? But that just show that there is a cost to do it, but just too high, right?
Okay, there's another interesting one. So how many hours of work per week, I guess, would you do? How much week? And do you still have time for side activities? Well, you said you were jogging. But really,
yes.
Quick one on this.
Yeah, outside of COVID, I play basketball as well. But I can tell you, you have to do trade-offs. I have a priority list. What are the most important things in my life? And sports, actually, there were a couple of years I didn't go to the dentist, I can tell you. So sometimes you have to catch up. But yes, you end up doing things only when they're extremely urgent, right? Like all those nice things. My friends, I told you my wife, I spent less time with her, and she knew it. She still complained. My friends, I've had an open communication. Hey guys, it is crazy, forget it. People understood it, and you always end up just keeping the best friends there. So it is lots of work. As I said, day and night. I've told you many times I've woken up during the night thinking about the problem from the previous day. But I enjoy it. That's the idea. If you enjoy it, you are not seeing it as a trade-off. Like, so I've done less sports, I agree. And yeah, but I've tried to keep up with sports. It was my top 3. So it was the startup, my family, and actually the startup is considered one of my kids. So I had 3 during the startup, and trying to keep up healthy. That was kind of the top 3 things.
Very good. Let me just state the obvious. Raise the hand if you want to say the word, say the question, or into the mic. So there's another one from Manju. How did you get the funding and continuously get the flow? I would assume cash flow, or maybe it's the flow of like having the groove to work. I don't know. But how did you get the funding?
So initially, the three founders, we invested our own cash.
Cash flow. Says
yeah, cash flow. So we invested our own cash in the beginning. I think we were between 3 of us, we put something like 300, 400,000. We were looking, again, project managers in big companies. Again, I mean, the 2 co-founders, they also previously worked in large companies. So we were not like, we had some savings. So that's the first. Then we raised from venture capitals twice. We had 2 rounds, yes, 2. And we were, as I said, about to actually get the 3rd one. First, we raised about $1 million, 1.2 million or something. And then we raised another 4 to 5 million. And yes, VCs. That was, again, the mini MBA. I have connections now with about 250 different VCs that I've spoken to.
Okay. Wow, there's an interesting question here. Top 3 books we should read if we want to create a startup.
Oh boy. As I said already, I don't go specifically book by book. I try to get the gist out of books rather than specific ones. But then there is The Founders something. I've never read it, but I had many ideas from it. Boy, I'm very bad with names, so forget it. But the no ASO rule is important. It has to be ingrained in you. I actually read it during Vistaprint times, but it's important to make sure that you actually are surrounded by the right people that have the right motivation.
Boris, maybe we can add this to the email. We will send an email to
point. Yes,
later
maybe
on.
I'll look into some of the books in the bookshelf and see which one they are. Yeah.
Okay, I think you already answered this one from Hisham. Any advice? Any advice about small family business startups? So doing it together, right? That adds another layer of complexity, I would assume.
Yes, it does. And I think there's 2 different types of startups, as I call it. One is a lifestyle startup, which is a small business. What you actually do to actually get a nice salary and just live. The other one is you're going for a unicorn, right? Which you have like unique technology impacting like Tesla type of vision. So the first one is actually perfectly okay. You just have to be very transparent where you go, because it's much harder to get large investments. VCs always go for unicorns, so that's kind of the thing. So you have to know where you are. The first one is actually lots of fun as well. Again, but same problems, right? It is lots of work, and then you have relationships with the right people. So you have to be very clear with each other what it is, and you have to have lots of trust. So it could make or break this family is the concern there. By the way, Turn the Ship Around. It's a very nice book that actually talks about it, which talks about distributing the decision making to the people that have the most knowledge. So it's not top down, but it's actually the people underneath that are experts. They decide, and equipping them with the decision rights for doing it. So very good one for that, I think.
Interesting title. How did you rebound after a major drawback? From Freddie. If you had one.
You don't rebound. You just dive into the next problem and hope that it's actually you solve it in positive way.
So it's
but yes, there were bad days, and yeah, my wife likely helped. I don't know. I don't really remember. I tried to forget the bad things.
Okay, maybe one more question if there is one, and then we will go to the closing slides. Do we have another question? It seems like no. Where do you start to find the startup niche? That was the one I
yeah. So you can try to invent it, but it's hard, or you can hope that it finds you. You can actually try. There's lots of meets of like founders and people like this. Actually, somebody today asked me, because as I said, I like to consult other people early stage. How do I find a good CTO for a specific problem? There's actually a number of platforms for that, but your networks is the best. Ideally, somebody that you know, not always possible. So then you go to meetups, events like this, pretty much. So if somebody has cool ideas and are wondering, as I said, I'm open to help you with whatever I can. I even know recruiters that actually can help you find this. They're kind of more entrepreneurship recruiters. And I've discussed with them that you don't ask for money when you recruit for this. You ask for a percentage of the startup, right? Because they're kind of really involved. But yeah, it's not an easy task. It's one of the challenges. If anybody, by the way, if anybody's interested in doing a startup, we have many ideas coming from ETH Zurich. We are lacking actually CEOs and COOs in Zurich area and Switzerland in general. So ping me. I'm sure I'll share some ideas if you like any of them.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, I think we will wrap it up here. Thank you, Boris. It was really cool presentation and really interesting questions from the audience. And yeah, we can then go forward with the closing slides. Many thanks to our speaker. Thank you, Boris. Thanks to the thank you to the organizing team. There's Pia from virtual team, Isato from virtual team, and obviously myself on the left. And then we might have a look at the next events. This is very interesting. So there's a masterclass coming on 17th of April, which is in 2 days. Herman Ramirez is leading the masterclass. It's a household name for marketing and branding and social medias. I would warmly recommend visiting the website of the Switzerland chapter and checking out this event. I think it's very interesting. Project management tools on 20th of April as part of Open Spaces series. This is also very interesting. It's more about how do you keep the tools and skills up to date to be really in line with the demands of the market. And then there are 2 courses, very interesting ones. So there's a discipline agile certification course for which there's 20% discount as far as I understand. And I mean for the training in order to go for the exam. So this is happening on 7th and 8th of May, and there's another one on 14th and 15th of May, followed by Open Spaces. So to stay up to date with the events, please visit our website, and you will find out more about cool events as this one here. So towards closing, then we have next slide, please. So we always try to promote and try to encourage aspiring PMI members and PMI members to become volunteers in our organization. As I said at the beginning, I've been volunteering and organizing events in 2017, helping out. It has been a rewarding journey for me personally. I would surely recommend it. Obviously, there are some benefits, especially if we start organizing on-site events very soon, which we plan. There's this networking component which is very important, and you get to learn and meet interesting people. And going further, yeah, don't forget the social media channels. We already spoke about this, especially about the YouTube channel, where if you miss something in this or any other event, you can check it out again. Going forward, obviously PDU code is here. So if you want to claim your PDUs with a PMI, please use the code below. If you missed it, no worries. You can, as I said, you can check out the video. If you scan the code here with your phone, you will be directed to the really quick survey. It's not even 3 minutes. You can just actually answer the questions within seconds. This would help us immensely, because we would be able to then improve or whatever you see as an issue, or if you have any praise or recommendations, so anything at all, like sound quality, video quality, topic, whatever you have, please share with us through this survey. And yes, that's it. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Boris, once again for excellent presentation, and see you soon at the next event of PMI Chapter Switzerland. Bye.